Hello again. This second video is intended to be a demonstration of how to clean a Pelikan piston filler when it's not convenient or recommended to use the sink cleaning method as described above. This case is more for pens that have nibs that you don't want to remove because they're fragile, such as the older vintage pens with the ebonite feeds with the longitudinal fins, or really any pen, including modern pens, could be done this way. First, I take 2 cups. In these cases, these are 6-ounce cups, and I just prefer see-through. They're easily obtainable in most stores. For my purposes, my home tap water is quite hard, so I prefer to use distilled water. So I'll fill both cups, approximately half full, with distilled water. I'll then take my pen, in this case an M605 Marine Blue, which was previously filled with Pelikan's Edelstein Amethyst, ink of the year 2015. What I'll do is submerge the nib, and you can already see that beautiful purple ink plume, and we cycle. I've already emptied the pen of any ink prior to doing this, and you just keep cycling. Now the water will become very saturated with ink very quickly, but that's okay. It's still doing its job. Sometimes this can be a little bit tedious, but what I like to do is cycle maybe 6 to 10 times. On one cycle, I'll leave it on the downward stroke so that the piston knob is actually up with the piston in the downward position, and I'll remove it to the second cup, which now has the clean water. You can still see a little plume of ink, but you can see this water is becoming much less saturated than the one previously. So again, I like to work the nib maybe 6 to 10 times. Or the piston, excuse me. Sometimes I like to give a shake just to make sure all the ink's gotten out of the barrel. And leaving it on downward stroke, I'll take it out of the water. I'll use a towel and just try to wick out whatever moisture I can from the feed and the nib. If I see that there's a lot of residue of ink, I will again run a couple cycles. With my goal ultimately being kind of wicking out just clear water. One thing you can do as well on a modern pen, if the nib is safe to remove, is just remove it just to clean any remnants off of the feed and reinsert. I'll dip it here. As you can see at this point, I'm wicking out mostly clear water. And for all intents and purposes, that's about as much as you need to do in terms of cleaning the pen. And what I'll do at this point is set it aside and allow it to dry. That does leave us with the pen cap though, and it does amaze me the number of people that do not clean the pen cap. To me, a pen's not truly clean unless the cap is clean as well. Now, I did a whole piece previously about disassembling the cap of a demonstrator in order to clean out all the nooks and crannies and whatnot. But you know, regular caps and which are non-demos, and even on demo caps, that's not always necessary. What I'll do is take a cotton swab. And here on the left is a regular cotton swab. Here on the right is a safety cotton swab, often used for infants and toddlers. You can see that the safety cotton swab has a lot more padding. And for cleaning the caps, I prefer the safety swabs. So I'll take a safety swab, dip it in the water, clean water, or if your water is only slightly tinged, I'll still use that. And I use it basically just to plunge the nib, or plunge the cap, and kind of clean the walls. you can see here the cotton swab came out fairly clean, which is a good indication that my pen wasn't batted around too much and wasn't leaking too much ink into the cap. I'll flip it over and I'll use the dry side to dry it out. What I'll also do is take a towel, twisted into a thin filament, and I'll insert that to dry out the moisture that I placed into the cap. I don't want to leave much moisture lying around. You can also use a can of compressed air and blow out any moisture you have as well. So I'll twist that around a little bit, and my towel comes out nice and clean, and I'll set this aside to dry along with the pen. And that's how to clean the cap in addition to the pen.